While everyone obsesses over the temporary foreign worker program, the one that actually gets scrutiny and backlash, what is mostly being ignored is the real elephant in the room. It's the one quietly flooding Canada with hundreds of thousands, almost 1 million temporary workers every single year, all under the radar. Let's dig in. In today's report, I'm talking about the International Mobility Program, otherwise known as the IMP. That's the Liberals' favorite backdoor for mass temporary migration. And I'm sounding the alarm on it because this underreported program is wreaking absolute havoc on our housing, our healthcare, our wages, and the future for young Canadians.
I spoke with BC's Premier David Eby a little bit earlier on in the program, and I wanted to start off on a link that both he and federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre are drawing between very high youth unemployment rates and the temporary foreign worker program. They're both asking, actually, your government to get rid of the program. Why have you thus far rejected that proposal?
Well, I mean, first of all, Vashi, temporary foreign workers make up less than 1% of the total Canadian workforce, and it is a pretty stringent program. Employers have to demonstrate that there is no Canadian worker in line for that job. They have to advertise, they have to interview with the department oftentimes, and prove that there is a need for a worker that's temporary. And then secondly, there are very stringent penalties should a worker, should an employer be found to be abusing that program, up to and including being banned from the program. So although I hear the concern from the opposition, as you know, and I think the Premier has raised this, it is not based in actual statistics and numbers.
So first, let's get the facts straight. Now, the Temporary Foreign Worker Program, the TFWP, is the one that everyone loves to hate. It requires a labor market impact assessment, or an LMIA, for entry. Employers have to prove that they can't find a Canadian first. Now, we know that it's not a foolproof process, and that program is well documented as being riddled with fraud, exploitation, and abuse. But the IMP, it doesn't even need an LMIA.
There's a lot of gaps in the system. And yet your government is on track to issue 215,000 roughly new permits between foreign students and temporary foreign workers. Why are you letting in so many more temporary foreign laborers when you don't have a way to track people whose permits might have expired? Like, why are you doing that?
I've traveled across the country. Businesses, communities in all parts of the country are
but what about
need
Canadian
temporary
kids?
Workers for many different sectors
but
in our
Canadian?
economy, and we do have a great system. We know people who are coming in; they are security cleared. We know where they're working.
I guess I'm just wondering, if you can't track if people who aren't supposed to be here can leave, why you would be issuing new permits and potentially taking away jobs from Canadian youth in the middle of a jobs crisis. But I digress. This is pretty bad, right? Like, even a lot of folks in the media brought out that this was pretty bad. Has the Prime Minister called you at all to discuss maybe speeding up the implementation of some of these things, given that you're issuing over 200,000 new permits? Like, has he called you into his office and said, what the heck?
I have constant meetings with the Prime Minister when we develop our immigration levels plan that was tabled November 5th. And we have discussions all the time. I see the Prime Minister on a weekly basis.
Nope. Under the IMP, it's wide open under international agreements, intra-company transfers, post-grad work permits, spousal open permits, and dozens of exemptions. Non-permanent residents with employment income are broken down into a few different categories, according to this Statistics Canada chart. The Temporary Foreign Worker Program, the IMB for work purposes, the IMB for study purposes, for other purposes, and study permit holders without a work permit, and then other temporary residents without a work permit. In the 2025 report to Parliament on Immigration, Minister Lena Diab approved the message that this is based on the broader economic, cultural, or other competitive advantages for Canada and reciprocal benefits enjoyed by Canadians, and permanent residents. Just to really drive home the data here, in 2024, there were 191,630 individuals with new work permits under the TFWP versus a staggering 717,405 individuals with new work permits under the IMP. That's more than 500,000 more people than the temporary foreign worker program, almost 4 times as many. That's more than 500,000 more people than the temporary foreign worker program, almost 4 times as many, which is down from an even bigger surge the year prior. And guess who the largest source country for this is? India, followed by Ukraine. Year after year, the IMP dwarfs the TFWP, with the disparity growing a staggering amount since at least 2010, and those numbers exploded under the Liberals beginning in 2015. This isn't controlled, sustainable immigration, it's the floodgates wide open. Open work permits mean these workers can go anywhere, to any job. There's no real tie to a specific employer or proven labor shortage. And the results? Well, they're the predictable chaos that we see now.
What that means is that unless something else changes, our incomes will be lower than they otherwise would have been. They'll grow, but they'll grow along a lower. This was the old path. Now there's a new path, which is below the old path. There are things the country can do to try to bend that curve up, but those aren't things monetary policy can do. These are more structural changes.
Canada's temporary foreign resident population ballooned to millions, driving the housing crisis into overdrive, making rents skyrocket, leaving young families priced out, and youth not getting entry-level jobs. Our hospitals are overwhelmed, schools are strained, and this federal policy implication is being continually downloaded onto provinces and municipalities without adequate resources to absorb the culture shock.
In the last election, we didn't have a housing crisis. And just up to a few months back, I didn't know the federal government was going to bring in over 500,000. Now we learn that those aren't accurate numbers. It's probably up to 800,000 are arriving. I didn't get a phone call from the minister. I didn't get a phone call from the prime minister saying, surprise, surprise, we're dropping these many people into your province. And by the way, good luck, you deal with them. That's the reason we have to make sure that we use every tool in our toolbox to build homes.
Youth unemployment is climbing while employers flood the market with cheap temporary foreign labor. Public polling shows most Canadians now see temporary foreign worker programs, and by extension, this unchecked IMP surge, as hammering housing affordability and job prospects for our kids. But the Liberals, they kept the taps on full blast for years, prioritizing this broader economic benefit over Canadian workers and communities. This is the same government that lectured us about building back better. Well,
building back better means getting support to the most vulnerable while maintaining our momentum on reaching the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the SDGs.
Importing the scale of a small city every few months without building the infrastructure to match. It's reckless, it's unsustainable, and it's hitting everyday Canadians the hardest, especially in our biggest cities and provinces like Ontario that are disproportionately expected to absorb this influx. Why isn't this the top story every single night on the news? Well, it doesn't fit the narrative. The temporary foreign worker program gets the blame, but the IMP is that silent predator. Bigger, faster, and far less accountable. The Liberals opened up these floodgates, and now we're all paying the price with a generation of young Canadians shut out of the housing and job markets their parents took for granted.
As the senior deputy governor has hammered many times, we need to get our productivity growth up. And if we can do that as a country, we can bend that curve up. So, I think what's most concerning is that unless we change some other things, our standard of living as a country, Canadians, is going to be lower than it otherwise would have been.
Elbows up, I guess. When will the Mark Carney Liberals prioritize Canadians first? I think there needs to be a full-scale audit of the IMP from every stream to every exemption. And if you're a fed-up Canadian like me and many others, please share this. Speak up and demand better from Ottawa. Canada is full. Not of hate, as the left or the mainstream media would have you believe, but of people who can no longer afford to live here because of these failed policies. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. Canada's out-of-control mass migration is breaking our country, and if you've had enough, please put your name to our petition and sign up so that you never miss a report on this topic at remigrationnow.ca. From insane housing costs, rising youth unemployment, and foreign conflicts spilling into our streets. Enough is enough. Head to remigrationnow.ca.